Hello everyone and welcome to another year of foundations. We are on cycle 2 this year, which should be a really fun time of talking about Middle Ages and history, and also talking a lot about space. So for week 1, we did some basic introductions, and everything moved pretty quickly and smoothly for the day. We started with our geography, and we talked about the continents and the oceans, and it seems like a lot of work, but I presented a song, and we sang that once through, but then also I had the kids tracing it out and highlighting it and taking turns finding the continents and the oceans on the map and naming them. The song that I sing and my family sings is by the Home Video Variety Show, and I will include a link to that at the bottom of the video in the comments, and I'll also send it out in an email. But I'll sing it for you now. So it goes: continents and oceans, North America, South America, Europe and Asia, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica, Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Southern Ocean. And yeah, so if you follow that link, you'll be able to listen to it, and it's a fun song, and it's a pretty catchy tune too, once you get all those words. For timeline, I do a fun game of Battleship. I don't do it every week, but I usually have a competition for like the first quarter, and like I'll do it maybe one or two other times. But what I do is I have 4 ships, and I tape them to the back of random timeline cards, and then as we're going through it, we'll repeat it, and then I'll choose a student or two to select a couple of cards, and then we check and see as we flip them. Okay, is there a ship behind there? Yes, no, and then we say all the timeline cards again, and including the ones that have been removed already. And then by the end of it, there's usually like 2 cards left, and one will have a boat and one won't. And this week 1, Mrs. Cole the Jelly one. So I keep track of that, and if the class beats me by the end of the quarter, then they get to pick from the prize box. We also had math, which was the 1s and 2s, so really easy. But being the older group, we have to do the full multiplication facts. So we have to say 1 times 1 is 1, or 2 times 1 is 2. And for that, it gets to be really long, so I try and break it up. I have a 6-sided die that I used, and we rolled, and I had written down different exercises that we could do depending on what number they rolled. So if they rolled a 1, we did jumping jacks. I think a 3 was planks. And while we were doing that, we were repeating the math facts. For history, we talked about Charlemagne. And for that one, I brought bells because the history song has those bells that are jingling in the background. And so there were 2 students that came up front, and then the rest of them were jingling bells. And for the 2 students that came up front, I had a Pope's hat and I had a crown. And so one was Pope Leo III, and the other one knelt before him as Charlemagne. And then Pope Leo III places the crown on Charlemagne's head. So it was a fun way to get movement going and get a visual and sing the song. For science, we have what occurred on each day of creation. And for that one, hand motions have been really helpful for us to remember all of those days. So I'll show you those. So what occurred on each day of creation? Day 1, Earth, space, time, light. Day 2, atmosphere. Day 3, dry land, plants. Day 4, sun, moon, stars. Day 5, fish, sea creatures, birds. Day 6, land animals, Adam, Eve. So Those are all simple, and then they also have either the 1 finger for day 1 or the 6 fingers for day 6 that they use, so it helps you keep track of what day you're talking about. For Latin, we started our first conjugation endings present tense, and we talked about how present tense, when we get a present, we say, "Oh, thank you," and the kids had a lot of fun being goofy with that. And so then that one starts out with, that triggers us to remember that it starts out with OST, must isn't, OST, must isn't, OST, must is NT, first conjugation, present tense. And then we had English, and for English, it was the parts of speech. And so we did the chant to that one, which was 8 parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Woo! Noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective. And that was it. So we were able to go through that pretty quickly and stay on task there. And right after that, we did our fine arts. And fine arts was the elements of shape. And so we talked about oils, the circles, straight lines, dotted or dots, angled lines, and curves. And for that, I like to play a fun game where each of the students gets a piece of paper. They choose one element of shape and they draw that on the paper in a black marker. And then I collect them, I shuffle them up, and each person gets someone else's element of shape that they drew on their paper, and they have a colored marker, and they turn it into a picture. So, for example, we had one student that drew this like angled line all the way down the page. And so the next student who got it was super creative and thoughtful and made a spaceship, a moon, and a cow getting abducted. And it was just really fun to see how clever they were and creative with all of the pictures that they drew. And it's a fun way to just slow down and, just use your creativity. That went by pretty quickly. And for the rest of the time, I introduced what I'm going to be doing this year with the students if they would like. They can choose a dragon to slay. So because we're in the Middle Ages, I thought it would be fun to do like kind of the knights theme. And so I encourage students to think about something that either like one of the new grammar subjects that they struggle with, like if it's geography, that can be your dragon. Or if it's math, multiplication facts, that can be your dragon. Or if it's just, I have one student that said, my dragon is not singing or speaking the first time you introduce the new grammar, which is actually really hard for our students who have been through this, say, 3 times. So that was his dragon that he was going to work on and try and conquer. So it can be anything like that. The kids were throwing out some ideas there, and I just told them I'll just keep checking in with them, and we'll keep working our way. And the goal being that on week 24, we will have a knighting ceremony, and they will all be knighted. So for that, I had them, on our drawing day, draw maps. So the class got so quiet and so thoughtful with this, and they drew some amazing maps, and they even put their own spin on it too, which I love to see. So you can see there some of the kids' maps, and so we're gonna work our way through it, and I'll have points in the year where I will check in on the students and see how they're doing defeating their dragon. So if they defeat their dragon, they will be knighted in the end. Then our presentation time went really well. All the students did a great job getting up and having something prepared, and even if they didn't, to just be able to get up there with confidence and go with the flow and just pick a topic to talk about and present it well. And it was great, the interaction that we had, and a great opportunity for the kids to kind of get to know each other a little bit better. Then for our science time, we were able to go outside, and we did 2 experiments. One was shaded, and one was satellite. And so for shaded, our question was like, what's happening with the shade, and what will will the temperature be different with our thermometers? There was one in the sun and one in the shade, and it was a cloudy day, so it wasn't really direct sunlight. So we were all thinking, I had the students, before we checked the temperatures after 20 minutes, so we set them out for 20 minutes, and when we came back to it, before we checked the temperatures, I had them guess, okay, is it going to be like 2 degrees difference, 5 degrees difference, or is it going to be the same? And it came back super high. I think it was like 14 degrees difference. So we were all surprised by that. But then it made it really, just a really good illustration of like what's going on. And then we talked about how the shade is blocking the sun, how the sun provides heat and heat energy and light, and that shade is when that heat and light are being blocked. It's blocking the sun. And then for satellite, we talked about what a satellite is, and we talked about naturally occurring satellites. So there are natural satellites, which is the moon. So that is something that orbits a planet. And then there are man-made satellites. So then we talked about the Hubble telescope and the International Space Station, and that there are also some satellites called geostationary satellites. And those are ones that if we could see them from where we're standing, it would look like it was standing still, like it would just be moving with us. And so how is that possible? Does that satellite have to move at the exact same speed as the Earth, or does it have to move slower or faster? And so we demonstrated that by having a string where one student stood in the middle and the other one stood on the end of the string. And so the student that was in the middle was pretending to be the Earth moving. And so I had the student move very slowly, and then we kept that string taut. And the other student, we noticed, when they were moving, to move with them so they stayed facing each other, they were basically sprinting the whole time. And so we talked about how satellites in space, in order to appear geostationary, have to travel much faster. So we had good discussion surrounding that, and good movement as well, and enjoyed our time outside. For review, we played a game. For review, I kept with that medieval theme, and I introduced one of the review games that I have, which is called Castles and Cannons. And so I have a bunch of plastic cups and a few ping pong balls. And so as I split them up into 2 teams, and I ask each team one of the review questions. And after they answer, they're allowed to choose a castle or a cannon. So they get to choose a cup or one of the ping pong balls. And so that's a castle or a cannon. And the goal is to build the tallest tower, and to either knock down your opponent's tower or have the tallest tower standing by the end of it, because they're both strategizing how many cups they want to pick and how tall they want to stack their tower, and then how many cannons they want to have by the end of it. Because by the end of all the review questions, they line up, and however many cannons they chose during the review question time, they get an opportunity to throw it at the other team's castle and try and knock it down. So the kids seem to enjoy that. We may not use ping pong balls because they've worked in the past, but they did not work well. And I think in the past I had them bounce it off of a table. So yeah, we'll edit it and work out all the kinks there. But it was a fun review game and a good way to introduce something new with the extra time that we had. So I will post week 2's video later on. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm excited for this year. Let me know if you ever have any issues with any of this, or if you have questions, just shoot me an email. All right, have a good week. Bye.